Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. Hello everyone out there. Welcome back for another episode of the Recess Life. If you are listening to this the week it is released, it is the week after Labor Day, a long weekend here in the States, and I hope you did something fun with your long weekend. I went axe throwing, something that is completely new and different for me. It's exactly how it sounds. You take an axe and you throw it at a target and hope that it lands somewhere on the target. It's really easy for our bodies to get stuck in the patterns that we use it every day for, and we only have a limited range that we use our bodies every day, right? So when we do something different, it kind of wakes our brain up. So I hope you did something to wake your brain up this weekend. Today, we have Susanna Pollock on the podcast. She is the president of Games for Change. At Games for Change, they work with organizations to create meaningful change and advance their mission through the use of digital technology and video games. When you hear video games, the last thing you may think about is its ability to create any sort of positive or meaningful change. But you may change your mind after you hear this conversation with Susanna. In fact, there's so much research being done about video games and other immersive technologies like VR and its ability for us to learn better and to create meaningful change because we become immersed in the experience. We become a part of the experience rather than a passive absorber of information. Susanna and I got into a great conversation about how digital technologies and video games can create meaningful change in people and organizations. I asked her how she would respond to people's criticism of saying games have a negative impact in society. And we also talked about how you can think about games differently to create meaningful change in your life. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I will catch you at the end to recap those little nuggets of wisdom. I have an amazing guest with us today. Her name is Susanna Pollock, and she is the president of Games for Change, the leading global advocate for the power of games as drivers of social impact. I never thought I would hear games and social impact in the same sentence, but that just excites me. In her role there, she produces the annual Games for Change Festival, the largest gaming event in New York, dubbed by national media as the Sundance of Video Games. Hi, Susanna. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Louise. Happy to be joining.
Yes. So I was so excited when I stumbled across you because I think the idea that something like games, video games, can be used as a positive force in this world is something that goes against maybe the mainstream a little bit. And you have an amazing festival that is dedicated to this mission, as well as a number of services and programs that you provide. And I just got really excited to learn more about you and to learn how this venture came to be. So first of all, let's start with just a little bit of background on you. I know you're based in New York. Is that where you grew up, and is that where your love of games came to be?
Yeah, so I am from the New York area. I was a Long Island girl at first and then moved into the city for a period of time, and I'm in Connecticut now, but I've always kind of had my personal and professional life circling around New York City. I would say that my love of games began here, but my love of content and storytelling is really where it kind of began for me, and what directed this journey that ended up in games, as I have always been excited about and wanting to immerse myself in a storytelling kind of culture, right? And that to me was the kind of through line or connector to I guess, or the spine, I guess, if you want to say, like, through my life, in terms of storytelling and play and connecting with people.
And what really sparked that love of storytelling and play? Was there any moment in your life where something ignited in you, or was it something that someone influenced you and that it became a part of your life the way it is?
Yeah, I'm one of those kids where I can't quite remember when it began, but it was really, really young. I mean, since I was a little child, I'd wanted to be involved in, I'll say, play acting and theater. So I was a theater kid from the earliest of days, right? Like 3 years old. This is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. And I was, putting on plays with my cousins, at Thanksgiving, and acting in local productions, and then dancing, and this whole world of pretending to be somebody else, which was really exciting to me. And it was just playful. Like, it was just this opportunity to play in a really interesting way that wasn't competitive. It was imaginative. It was storytelling, and it could be silly, and it could be structured or unstructured. And so that is really what I was excited about, I guess, pursuing, and for many years. And that's really what brought me to New York. And then at a certain point in my life, I said, there are other parts of this, I'll say, storytelling business or the entertainment sector that I love. It doesn't have to be the one who is on stage or in front of the camera, but someone who's involved in other aspects of the storytelling. And that's kind of where I ended up moving into television, and I ended up working in TV for many years, and started this journey of finding different platforms in which one could tell stories. And games over the last 25 years have just become a dominant medium that is really it's like the platform for storytelling in the 21st century.
Yes. And it's great that as you evolved through your journey, you never at any point said, oh, storytelling and games and play, that was a phase of my life when I was younger, and I need to sort of grow up now. But you decided, this is a passion of mine, and what are the ways I can make an impact in it and continue to do it?
Yes. So there's a joy in that, right? Is finding your passion. I don't know if you've read the book or see Sir Ken Robinson speak on TED, but he's a phenomenal educator, and he has this book called The Element, When Finding Your Passion Solves Everything, particularly for young kids, right? And I feel like I had that moment. I was lucky enough to find my passion really early, and it just drove me through. I was an academic kid. I did well in school, and I did other things, but bring me back into this community and this opportunity to be playful and to experiment in who I was through that was a huge opportunity, a blessing.
Yeah, definitely. And so how did the transition from working in TV to games go? And was it a sort of straight line from TV to games and starting Games for Change?
Yeah, so no, it wasn't. I mean, for me, it makes sense. It makes sense of the progression. But so I was working for the BBC for many years, working with awesome storytellers across documentaries and scripted series and movies. And then I started working with children's programs. And, there's a huge imagination, right, in children's programs. And I was working with them at the time of Teletubbies, right? And just completely out there, magical kind of content. And what I saw in that space is that children want to experience their stories and their world across so many different touch points in their lives. It's not just watching something on a screen. It's playing with the dolls. It's dressing up as a character. It's reading a book. And so this notion about multi-platform storytelling really was interested to me. And then as the digital, I guess, medium became more advanced, interactive storytelling became more possible. And so that just kind of led me into other interactive story opportunities, whether it's on the computer or through choose your own adventure, even reading, right? Like how to direct your own storytelling. Right. And then I realized at some point, wait a second, that's games. Like that is partly what a game can be, or one type of game, right? Interactive storytelling, or stepping in the shoes of another character and making choices as that character. So that's what led me to work in the games community. I wasn't the founder of Games for Change. It has been around for 15 years. I came into this community about 5 years ago, wanting to kind of leverage everything that I learned in my life and what I was excited about into this world, and seeing how I can help grow the Games for Change community. First working in partnerships, and then in the last 3 years as president.
Got it. Yeah, I think the idea that we learn best by having a platform or medium just talk at us, and for us to not interact with it, I think that idea is hopefully becoming more prominent, that we need to be interactive and immersed in an experience to really understand it, and for it to really sink in. And you are right, that is games, and that's how we all learn best, and that's how we become immersed into anything. And that's one of the reasons why I think games are so effective in social change, right? Is that other forms of entertainment, as powerful as they can be, and they can be incredibly powerful, is a passive experience where you're, watching a story unfold across a screen, or you're reading a book, or you've seen a poster outside on a billboard that gives you a message and elicits a feeling. But playing a game uniquely gives you a sense of agency, where you can actually change the outcome to the game. You can make choices, you can fail, you can experiment, and all of that, as you say, encourages a different relationship with the content and the experiences that you are living through that game. Mm-hmm. And plus, it's just more fun. And
we
as humans, we crave fun, no matter what age we are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. I mean, games, even games that, address the most serious of subjects, need to be engaging. They need to want to bring you back. It shouldn't feel like chocolate-covered broccoli, right? That's not the kind of games we're talking about.
Chocolate-covered broccoli, that's right. So let's talk a little bit about the function of how games can really drive change. I know you talk about a few ways that games can really drive social impact. And let's talk a little bit about some of those ways that can happen.
Sure. So the work that we've kind of been part of, the community that's been researching games and the ways in which they motivate behavior, and offer opportunities to communicate information is unique. And games can be intentionally designed to have like a particular outcome, right? They can be designed to make you feel something, to feel empathy for somebody because you step in the role of that experience, right? Games can be used to transfer knowledge. So think about very simple, like a quiz game or a math game or a social studies game, right? There's an amazing portfolio of games about civic education called iCivics, that was created by Sandra Day O'Connor, the former Supreme Court Justice. And she created a company that would offer civic education through video games that teach kids about the Bill of Rights, that teach them about how caucuses work, and it's all through engaging, dynamic, fun-looking experiences. And now they are, let's say, in countries, states all over the country. Then there are games, then there's something like completely different from another perspective, like games that can bring people together. I mean, you can think about massive multiplayer games online that are bringing communities together across the world. I mean, parents, I'm sure, there's frustration about their kids playing Fortnite, right? Because of the amount of time kids get like really into it. But, I have a 14-year-old. He comes home after school and says, I want to hang out with my friends. And he does that on Fortnite, right? So it's a place in which to bring people together. And then it also can be a platform for building awareness, just as other mediums like a PSA announcement, public service announcement, or the billboards that I was talking about. But if we done in a way that can engage people on an issue. We've worked on projects that have been games that are focused on raising awareness on Title IX rights, right? About rights on college campuses and sports. So we worked once with the Women's Sports Foundation on creating a game on Facebook Messenger. And it was a text-based game. And it was just a great opportunity for a way in which to engage with girls about their rights on campus, on sports teams, through this interactive, fun, chatbot kind of game.
Great.
Right? Oh. So those are kind of some of the examples. I could go on.
I love all of that. Yeah, it creates this, and a lot of what I'm hearing also is that it can create maybe sort of a lightness and accessibility to certain topics, and in a way that you wouldn't be able to access through other ways of teaching. It makes it much more, like you said, engaging and accessible to have this game component to it. Yeah, that's why I think in education there's a big movement to bring game-based learning into the classroom, because it is meeting kids where they are, right? They see the computer cards being rolled into the classroom, and they're going to be playing a game about the Bill of Rights. That's a lot different than hearing a lecture for 45 minutes. But then there's also this other side of the benefits of gaming, which is cognitive development and rehabilitation, and how games have demonstrated through evidence-based research that they can actually change the way our brains are wired over time. And they can be used to treat illnesses that otherwise have been treated through traditional medicine. For example, there's this amazing neuroscientist based out at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, named Dr. Adam Gazzaley. And he is a neuroscientist with a lab. They've been researching how they can treat cognitive debilitation and illnesses like Alzheimer's or the ADHD through repeated exposure to games. And they, after 2 years of research or 3 years of research, clinical trials, there actually is a game that has been submitted to the FDA for approval that would treat ADHD in young people. And if approved, and it's on track to get approved, it could be the first electronic medicine prescribed by physicians as an alternative to traditional drugs. Wow, that blows my mind.
It's amazing.
Oh,
it's
that's
amazing.
So exciting.
Yeah, and there's another game also in the FDA for approval around lazy eye, treating ambliosis, I think is the name of it. And there's researchers all over the world looking at how pain reduction can be affected by people playing games, how people are motivated in physical therapy, mental issues like PTSD. And you add a layer of virtual reality to it. And so you're playing a game in virtual reality. Talk about immersive experiences. It takes it to a whole nother level.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is all so exciting to think about the potential for how games and these immersive technologies can really make an impact. That's incredible. Yeah. I'm so excited.
There's another really fun example that your listeners can try. This has been around for a while. It's a game called Zombie Run.
Okay.
And it's a game to help motivate you to keep up with a running regimen. And basically it's an audio-based game, right? So it's a game you play through your headphones. And basically you're participating in an episodic narrative about a zombie apocalypse. Where there are chapters, and in each chapter you are given a scenario and you are literally running from zombies. And they have things you have to accomplish and things like that. And they're able to track your consistency to this routine and how you are motivated. And it's a very successful, app on the App Store.
Amazing. Zombie Run.
It runs really fun.
So fun. Yes. And I have so many, I'm a runner myself, but I have so many friends that are intimidated by it, or they say, oh, that's just not for me. And they're afraid to even try it. But if you can throw a layer on it, like, oh, we're just playing a zombie apocalypse game.
Exactly, right?
Again,
that sounds fun.
Exactly. It just makes it so much more accessible and less intimidating when it has that component to it. And I think that's what play is, and the impact and the potential that play has in all the mediums that it has. It's able to help us connect with each other better. It helps us to learn about things and do things we may not otherwise do, because play is so innate to us as humans, and if we can tap into that, then what could we be willing to do?
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, it allows you to go outside your comfort zone and to try new things. We use a lot of playful activities within corporate training that we do. Mm-hmm. We encourage some of our partners to think like game designers, and how to think about games as a way to brainstorm, and how to facilitate the design process, right? So that the act of creating a game, or if you break down a game, there are certain components to it that are that can be played with to achieve different goals, and it's so much fun in those environments to get corporate executives to be playing games, right? We play how would you change tic-tac-toe if you had 3 players? What would you do to mod tic-tac-toe? Right. What about Rochambeau? So we kind of bring games into corporate training as a way to get them to be thinking outside the box.
Great. Yeah. Talk a little bit more about some of the work you do with corporate partners and different organizations, because I know you have a lot of different programs that you do within Games for Change.
Yeah. So like what we did with the Women's Sports Foundation, and we have worked with companies to help design a game for their social impact mission, right? So for 1 year, we worked with American Express and the National Park Service to design a game that helped encourage young people to discover their local parks and to realize that there are many volunteer opportunities for them in the parks. And it was a traditional endless runner game, like Sidekick, like Temple Run, right? Where you're literally running across the screen, right? In this case, you're running across the park and you're collecting things and you're picking up trash, or you're feeding the animals, and all the different things that you can do as a volunteer. But it was a great way to get the messaging out there, right? Rather than distributing, flyers at schools, because it was just something fun to play with. Mm-hmm. Another example of a game that we designed is with Nicholas Kristof, who was a New York Times journalist. Yeah. He wrote a book a number of years ago called Half the Sky, yep. And it's about empowering women, right? You're familiar with the book. Yes. And so at the time, he wrote this fantastic best-selling book. He had a documentary on PBS that George Clooney was in, Olivia Wilde, and they went to different countries and met these amazing women who overcame their circumstances. But he had this vision that he wanted to connect with people who weren't following him, who weren't reading his books, who weren't watching a PBS series, about people he wanted to connect with that aren't thinking about these issues. And he came to us and asked us to make a game around the book. So this is, back when Facebook had a lot of those dominant games like Farmville and right. Cityville and all those things. So we created a game that was about different women in different countries. We were able to step in their shoes, make choices as if they would make choices about what to buy, food for their families, whether they could afford health care, things like that, sending their daughter to school. And then throughout the gameplay, you actually were able to trigger donations. It was almost like an in-app purchase, except you're not actually purchasing your own money. You were able to trigger donations made by sponsors that we brought in. So we had Johnson & Johnson donating surgeries to women in need. We had Pearson donating books to rooms to read and libraries. So it was this playful way in which you could engage in learning about the lives of these women and also have a real world change, because as you played, you unlocked different donations, and there were cash donations too, that actually served the communities that these stories were about.
That's amazing. So any organization or entity, if they are looking to, whether maybe to engage their constituents or to expand their message, they can come to Games for Change and work with you to strategize on this.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we're not a game studio. We won't actually make the game, but we have a methodology that we work with our partners to think through what their goals are from a social impact lens, and how to shape a concept for a game that will meet their goal. Because there are a couple of things you have to think about when you're designing a digital game. One is obviously, what do you want to happen? Do you want this game to educate someone on something, or to bring communities together, or raise awareness for an issue? But then there's also a question of, who do you want to play the game? If you want kids or young kids under 13, or do you want to have senior citizens? The average age of a gamer is 34 now. Oh, so really? It's not just, that was another point that we talk about with our partners. It's not just for young kids, but people play games on different platforms. So that's the point. So you have, teenagers and millennials and moms and grandparents all playing games on mobile phones, right? But that you can't control how they play. You just put it out there in the App Store, and you hope, you try to hope they find it. But another way to develop a game for communities is to make it a facilitated experience, let's say on a laptop, and you have a teacher facilitating in the classroom. And that means you are making a different type of game for that platform versus the Xbox or, or a controller, those kind of systems. So we will help our partners think through that kind of strategy, and ultimately the gameplay and what's the right experience to make that game. But then if people are just interested in learning more about this community, they can certainly come to our annual festival in New York, where we bring together over 1,000 stakeholders in the Games for Change space: educators, not-for-profits, game designers, government agencies, all come together to learn about, the newest trends, some great projects, inspiring stories from people who are using games in their work.
Yes, that sounds like the perfect community to plug into if you are interested in learning more about how games can be used for social impact. Oh, that's incredible. And so let's say there is someone out there that is sort of holding themselves back from engaging in more play and creativity in their life. Is there anything that you would say to them to get them out of that mindset, to really look at play and games as something that can be productive and meaningful in their life, and maybe what they want to accomplish in their life?
Sure. So first I would say that playing games is not a waste of time. It can be used as escapism, and that's awesome, and it can be used for entertainment, but there's also social and cognitive benefits to playing games, just by virtue of, playing a AAA, first-person shooter game, in the way you are learning how to problem solve, and you are dealing with conflict resolution, and if you're working with team members, it's communication, and so there are a whole bunch of reasons in which engaging with games can actually be good for you. Then there's this whole portfolio of games that are designed for impact. And if people wanted to check out, games about the environment, or games about the refugee crisis, or games that help you manage your your anxiety, for example, you can find those kind of games on our website, because we just have a library of games that we point people to. Or now even Google Play, I think, on the App Store has a Games for Good category to explore. So there are games out there that kind of serve different needs for people. If it's, if they feel like, oh, I'm not a gamer, I'm not going to sit and play, or I don't like Candy Crush, it's a waste of time. There are other kind of, as I said, there are games to help you with anxiety and meditation. you know, and
Yeah. So maybe think about what your need is, what your goals are around your life or something that you're working on right now, and figure out maybe a game that can help you accomplish that or help you achieve that. So that's a great way to start.
There's a wonderful game designer named Jane McGonigal who also has a terrific TED Talk, and she wrote a book. There are two books that she wrote that I think are relevant here. One is Reality is Broken, and the other is called Super Better. And they both are based on the premise that you can overcome obstacles in your life by creating a game around your life, by gamifying your life. And that to me is like the ultimate playful approach, right? So if you have challenges, you know, that you're trying to overcome, it's like how to set that up as achievable goals or levels, how to create friends to support you or allies, give yourself rewards like power-ups, and literally there's like a step-by-step guide to how you can gamify your life and make yourself a happier person and achieve your goals.
Right. It could be even something as simple as, you know, I will reward myself with a massage if I run 3 times a week for a month or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's the idea of gamification, but it goes it even broader than that. How to think about people in your life that can help you as you would in a game, about people you rely on or special skills you need to pull up at certain times. Just frames it in a way that feels like a whole immersive experience. But your life is this immersive experience, you know, as told through a playful lens.
It's so easy to kind of get bogged down in, I don't have this figured out in my life, or I'm so far from this goal, and we get in these mental blocks. But what if we just looked at it as a game and something we can approach with more lightness? So
yes, and change perspective, I think also. It just it just alters your perspective on things when you're playing a game.
Yeah.
It's no longer solely your thought process. You have to adjust and react to what's being in front of you in a creative way.
Yes. Do you encounter any criticisms either from the public or just critics in general around the idea of games being utilized in any capacity? Because I could see that being that coming across as games are negative, you know, for X, Y, and Z, and how do you respond to that?
So games over the last several years have been identified or scapegoated for some societal ills or issues. Right. But games are not alone in that space. I mean, years ago it used to be television, right? The boob tube was like dumbing down our entire society, or the violence on, shows like Bionic Man was causing real world violence. And it's that kind of criticism that games have been in the spotlight about for the last 10 years. And you've had political positioning about the negative impact of these games can have on young people or isolated people. But the research has not supported that at all. In fact, there is the significant research to say there's no correlation between somebody playing a violent video game and somebody go out and having violent behavior. But unfortunately, it gets lumped together. But as I said, it's not something new. And then the other piece of criticism that has come up in the past is about the potentially addictive nature of games. Right. Again, I look to the research to provide enough information one way or another. I think it is very early in anyone's research about the addictive nature of games, but I have not seen anything that is forthcoming to say that they are addictive and that parents and people should be worried. I personally liken it to having a modest diet. It's like having a healthy diet, right? So there's moderation, right? There's moderation of all the media that you should consume. And that if there are things that are driving people to play video games consistently or, and it's disrupting parts of their lives, it's typically because there's something underlying That's
right.
the issue.
There's something deeper. Yeah, I think just with anything in life, you have to have a healthy relationship with it. You could have an unhealthy relationship with shopping. It doesn't mean that, stores need to close down, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So, yeah, but it does. But I think, yes, there needs to be, if there is unhealthy behavior, it's more about there's something deeper lying there, and that needs to be addressed. Exactly. But likely not only the medium itself, So I think that's an unfair criticism. Any advice, any last parting words or advice that you have around just really cultivating a spirit and life of play and creativity, and how can one engage in that?
Well, I would say about being true to yourself, and that being playful does not necessarily mean not being serious. I found that there's a whole industry around play, right? I mean, there's serious business, and that even if you don't enter into it as a business, is that there's value in play in our society and in ourselves, in our healthy well-being, and that if it goes alongside with just listening to yourself and what you need mentally and spiritually to come outside of yourself, and often through play is the easiest way to do it.
Yes, finding your own relationship to play.
Yep, right.
And expressing that in an authentic way.
Yes.
Definitely. Oh, well, thank you, Susanna, so much for this conversation.
Really enjoyed it.
Yes, and we are going to end this just with a little dance party, because that's
okay.
I like to end some interviews with that. The vibe is right, and we're gonna throw on this latest one. Hey. Woo. Well, I'm gonna use that one. I'm stealing that one from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. That was Susanna Pollock, the president of Games for Change. That conversation gave me so many insights into how video games and digital technology can be used for positive change for people and with organizations. I mean, doesn't it sound so much more fun and interesting to learn something new, improve yourself, change a habit by doing it as a game, rather than making it this stressful, heavy goal of ours? So I really encourage you to think of your life as a game. Games by nature are collaborative, experiential, engaging. So there's such potential for how they can be used. You don't have to create your own video game or go through a VR experience to use games meaningfully in your life. Think about how you could gamify an aspect of your life that you're trying to change or improve. For example, if your goal is to floss every day, you could make it a game by having a competition with a friend, and the first person who misses a day of flossing has to pay the other one $5, or treat them out for a coffee or lunch, so that you can make it a game, you can make it fun, you can make it collaborative, you can make it just interesting. I so appreciate you for tuning in to today's episode. There are so many podcasts out there, and you could have chosen to listen to anyone today. And I am so grateful that you chose to listen to this one. I hope it helped you to think about how you can gamify your life to create meaningful change in your own life. Make sure you go to therecesslife.com for all of the show notes. We talked about a lot of resources and books and different concepts that you can check out on the show notes. So I hope you'll check that out. If you are not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Make sure you do so on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher now, Google Play Podcast. It's on all the platforms. And send this along to a friend, maybe someone who has looked down on video games before, and share this with them. And maybe they'll learn this little something about how they can create meaningful change in their life through the use of games. If you are on Instagram, you can give a follow at The Recess Life. I would love to connect with you there. And I would also love you forever if you decided to leave a review on iTunes. It really helps others to find the podcast. It really helps spread this message of the importance of play and creativity at all stages of our life. And again, I'm just so grateful for you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you for next week's episode. And until then, make sure you go out and play today.